It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Monday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we are once again talking about the Epstein files. Major new disclosures. And it looks like there's going to be a lot of news about these files in the coming days and weeks. And the big story today, if you haven't heard, it actually just broke, I think, minutes ago, a couple hours ago. But we have now learned that the Jewish billionaire Les Wexner, billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret, L Brands, other companies out of Ohio, has been named by the Department of Justice as an accomplice, an unnamed accomplice to Jeffrey Epstein. And this is a part of the files that was redacted when the files were released a couple weeks ago. But after this particular document came out, heavily redacted, the DOJ has decided to release the information. And this is part of actually up to 6 unnamed accomplices that the DOJ talks about in the files that could be charged, but their names are redacted. So our news for today is that the representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, a Republican and Democrat respectively, they are pushing the DOJ to name those people, and if the DOJ doesn't do it, they may use the floor of the House of Representatives to name these people themselves, because on the floor of the House, they are privileged to say whatever they'd like without civil or criminal liability. So they'll be able to do it. So we'll talk about this. It's sort of interesting. There's been a little bit of a development on those files. Last week, there is, I suppose it's a concession from the Justice Department. They say that congressmen will be able to view the files fully unredacted, but in a highly controlled setting. They have to give advance notice up to 24 hours. They're not allowed to record anything, photograph anything. They need to make an appointment. But we might be able to get some more information, answer some questions. Because as I said last week, the file dump that we have really creates more questions than answers. And the way we can do that is through our congressmen. So we'll talk all about that tonight. And I think that actually fits perfectly with what I've been saying about the files. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. That'll be our big story. If we have time, we're going to talk about these negotiations with Iran, which took place on Friday in the capital of Oman. And that's a very interesting story. I don't know if I'll get to it tonight because there's really so much to say, and I might need to just save it for tomorrow. There's been a few new developments. We had this big negotiation on Friday, as you know, and this was widely viewed as a take it or leave it, all or nothing, sudden death round of negotiations, where the United States presented a list of demands, and Iran was given the option either to totally capitulate or there's going to be a war. Now, both sides say that the talks were productive. The Iranian president said the talks were good. White House says talks were good. They say Iran wants a deal. What is different this time, different from last year, is that now you have the intercession of 6 Arab countries, 6 Muslim countries that are really pushing for a deal. And they are Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, and perhaps the United Arab Emirates. Oman is also present and pushing for a deal. Now Israel's getting a little bit worried because the talks went well on Friday, and there's a huge push now, more than ever, for many of America's traditional allies in the Middle East to make this deal happen. So Israel is lobbying the United States in turn not to make a deal. To that end, the Prime Minister of Israel is coming back to America. Yes, again, for the 6th time since Trump was inaugurated last year, the 6th meeting. Previous one was on December 29th in Mar-a-Lago. Netanyahu is coming back to Washington on Wednesday for a closed-door working meeting, no media, and his goal is to lobby the president not to make a deal and to insist that in these negotiations that Trump push the issue of ballistic missiles and proxies, mostly ballistic missiles. Now, with regard to Iran, Iran's conditions are that there can be not even a discussion of missiles or proxies. They only want to negotiate on the nuclear file. And to the extent that the talks are going well, it seems that both sides continue to persist in their red line. Neither side has come down, and Iran insists that they keep nuclear enrichment. The United States insists that they cannot have it. Iran will not relinquish its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. For the United States, this is a precondition that they give it up. So there are some things that are different about these negotiations. Some things are exactly the same. Just like before, you have the same positions, irreconcilable, intractable, Israel playing the role of saboteur, U.S. pointing the guns at Iran, force package, forward deployed, Iran stalling, trying to buy time. However, unlike the last time, you do have all these countries trying to make it happen. So, like I said, I don't know that we'll get to it tonight. We might save it for tomorrow because there's really a lot of ground to cover there. But the big news is going to come on Wednesday when we see the results of this meeting. But it's all very interesting. So, like I said, if we have time, we'll get to it. If not, we'll save it for tomorrow. But it's going to be a good show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Remember to check out our merch store, Fuentes.store. Get your USA quarter zips. It's so funny. Excuse me. Burp. Everybody's trying to get me to stop selling these quarter zips. I'm never going to back down on this. People are telling me, why is he doing this? Why are you selling the quarter zip? People are telling me to stop. I will never stop. Fuentes.store, they're sharp. Look, they look great. And I wear mine all the time. But we also have t-shirts, hoodies. We have the America First hats. We have this hat. We also have the GIA hat. This is kind of becoming like my new favorite. The Groyper Intelligence Agency. People always ask me if I'm a Fed. I'm in the GIA, Groyper Intelligence Agency. Invisible Empire. We're everywhere. So we have hats, lots of great products, everything that you like. Subscribe to our website if you want to support the show, americafirst.plus. It's $15 a month. We have a brand new subscription site, better than Rumble, some say. And you get access to every episode of the show. It's like almost 2,000 episodes. Our catalog going back 10 years. Every speech, interview, commentary stream, gaming stream, debate. It's all there in one place, searchable, and it's a great website. We also have for $100 a month, you get to be in a group chat with me where I'm just chopping it up all day, hanging out. I have no life. I have no social life, so I'm just in there hanging out with you people. And it's kind of a deal, you know, $100 a month to talk to me. You know, I'm a pretty famous guy. That's not a lot of money to be able to just hang out. You know, it's actually, people were complaining when I released it. It's actually a good deal. That's americafirst.plus. Okay. With that being said, we have to talk about this Super Bowl halftime show. There is so much to talk about. The greatest Super Bowl halftime show of the 21st century. I thought it was great. I understood every word. I don't know what everybody was complaining about. People said, I can't understand a word of the Super Bowl halftime show. This is ours. This is America. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I understood every word he said. I understood it perfectly. People were saying it's un-American. I'm like, this looks exactly like the neighborhood I grew up in. I was like, this is super relatable. The sugar cane, the nail tech, the salsa dancing. I was like, that looks like where I'm from. I was like, those look like my parents. Those look like me familia. That's like all my cousins. I think I recognized a few people there. I thought it was great. That was the kind of culture I grew up with. That was kind of the rhythm of where I grew up in Mexico City. And they look like my people, talk like my people. I was like, finally, I feel included. No, I'm joking, of course. Just rage base. You guys are idiots. You guys are idiots, all right? It's just a little rage bait. Hey, just jokes, relax. Everyone's gonna be okay. What do you need, a safe space? Here, we'll rent an overflow space and, we'll hang up some red, white, and blue streamers and we'll put some country music on, okay? We'll do a little counter programming, okay? Would that make you feel better? Do you need a little safe space? This song is in Spanish. This isn't English, this is Spanish. Hey, it's okay. We have some counter programming. We rented an overflow room. We're going to play some country music. There. It's all right. It's going to be fine. We'll have some ranch dressing. We'll have some Domino's pizza. It's going to be fine. No, I'm kidding. I'm just, guys, since when did our side become like this? Maybe we've always been like this and I just never saw it. Here's my unironic take about the halftime. I'm joking around a little bit. Here's my unironic take. Is we have to talk about a couple of things. We have to talk about the halftime show. We can't talk about it without also discussing the Kid Rock thing that was going on somewhere else. What the fuck was that? I mean, if that's the best we have to offer, honestly, I'm switching sides. If that's, seriously, they said this is the all-American halftime show, God, family, and it's like, okay, if that's the all-American halftime show, I don't know, guys. We're losing them. We got to come up with something better because that was a tough watch. If it is a requirement to pretend to like that, to be like a patriot, I can't do it. I'm just telling you up front. I'm going to be honest with you. Full disclosure, I can't do it. I think I'd rather kill myself than pretend to like that. So you're telling me we're at the Super Bowl party with the normies, with the hoes, with the chuds and the faggots. We're at the Super Bowl watch party. We're having our taquitos. We're having our wings, pizza, watching the big game. Everybody's having a good time. You're telling me we have to turn off the TV or we have to switch the input. We have to go to the Rumble app and watch some AI ad about alternative medicine. And then we have to watch Kid Rock and this generic country music. And we have to pretend to like this. We have to all be like, this is really good. She's really good. I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It sucks. And, not for nothing. Didn't we do this for the RNC? Isn't this just our token celebrity? Didn't Kid Rock play the RNC? It's just like a freak show. It's like Amber Rose was there last year at the 2 years ago at the RNC. Kid Rock. And I'm watching the show. I actually watch it this afternoon, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of maybe a section of what we're about that is kind of going away, and maybe there's no bringing it back. I don't know. Is there anything kind of worth hanging on to there? It's kind of a rough thing. And I said this on Telegram, and it was a little controversial, but let's be honest. The Bad Bunny halftime show, let's be perfectly honest, it wasn't a militantly woke show. It just wasn't. The way that conservatives were talking about it, I thought it was going to be Drag Queen Story Hour. The way that conservatives were fear-mongering and creating this anxiety about this halftime show, they're like, it's going to be an anti-ICE, anti-Trump. They're going to burn the American flag. He's going to be cross-dressing. It's not what it was. And let's take a step back and not look at it through the lens of being a chud that is obsessed with politics. Let's take a step back and look at it through the eyes of a normie. It's like a Latino-themed show. It's like a different theme. And yeah, it's in Spanish, got it. And yeah, it's very Puerto Rican, it's very Latin. But if I'm a normie and I'm watching this, it's basically just an inoffensive, Latin-themed show. And it's not really that political. Obviously, there's a political subtext, and we can get into that. The significance of it is not lost on anybody, that in the middle of this ICE thing, in the middle of the mass deportations and the phenomenon of ICE removals, which heavily target Hispanics, the significance is not lost on anybody that you have this celebration of Latin America, and it's in Spanish, and we know this artist's politics, this Bad Bunny character. I don't think any white Americans know who he is, listen to him. This is an artist for Latin Americans in the United States, outside the United States. And so to have this guy, and also we know his politics in particular, he said fuck ICE at the Grammys and all that. And then at the end, he comes out with all the different flags from Latin America. Love triumphs over hate. Of course, there is a subtext. I understand that. But if you step outside of yourself as a chud that, like I said, you're obsessed with politics, and you go into the big social outing of the year, the Super Bowl watch party, and you can't stop thinking about politics and Trump and, you know, this kind of stuff. If you're a normie and you're watching it, it's basically inoffensive. It's not explicitly political. It's implicitly political. It's not actually antagonistic. I didn't feel, and I say this as a right-wing white American, as really a far-right white nationalist, whatever you want to say, I did not feel antagonized by the show. I didn't feel like the show was taunting me. I didn't feel like it was antagonizing me. I didn't feel that it was defiant. I didn't feel like it was militant or anti-American. I think that it was actually, and I say this from the point of view of what it is propositionally, it's positive. And I don't mean by that it's good. I mean that it was a positive message. And the message was the US and Canada and all the countries of the Americas were celebrating all the people. And so whereas maybe different expressions of wokeism in the past were very negative, it was about saying fuck white people, fuck America, and conservatives and Christians, and it was about giving them the middle finger and deliberately taunting them and antagonizing them and reveling in how antagonistic they were being. It was almost like the mirror image of that. And rather, it was celebrating the diversity of the Latin Americans. And it was a propositionally positive message. And arguably, there was even, you could say, an olive branch saying, God bless America. Arguably, that's a political thing in itself, but waving the U.S. flag, throwing that in there, not having it loaded up with degeneracy, not having it completely loaded up with LGBT type stuff or feminist stuff. You could argue that's something like an olive branch. In a way, it's inclusive towards chuds. Like a normie who is not aligned or a chud could actually watch it and plausibly not feel like they're being attacked. Now, why do I point this out? A lot of people are not going to like me saying this because people are going to say, well, what are you talking about? It's in Spanish. It's cultural imperialism. They are brown and they're speaking Spanish and that's anti-white, et cetera, et cetera. And I get all that. Here's the reason why I'm saying this. We have to reconcile and come to terms with the fact that the left is a different animal today than it was 5 years ago. Something changed 5 years ago. The culture began to shift. And I think it started around 2021. After Joe Biden was inaugurated, and this is in the middle of the pandemic, and it's after BLM and the riots, and you have the Ukraine war, which starts a year later in 2022. You have a lot of criticism of critical race theory. It's right around this time that I think the culture fully shifted or began to shift. And it began to shift because people saw the contradictions inherent in wokeism. And what were those contradictions? So they had everybody posting the black square, Black Lives Matter, BLM, he can't breathe. But then at the same time, everybody saw the riots and the summer of love and the crime, and they saw what abolishing the police looks like. They also saw a lot of anti-white hatred. And so people started to say, wait a second, to the extent that a normie believes in wokeism, which is equality and anti-racism and kumbaya and all this, tolerance, pluralism, people said this doesn't really work. Because on the one hand, we are saying equality and tolerance and this sort of thing. I can't breathe. At the same time, in effect, it is anti-white and it's crime. And it's actually just making everybody out to be a hypocrite and making everybody out to look stupid. Here everybody was sympathetic, raising the fist, taking the knee, posting the square. And what did these black people do? They then burned down the city. And actually, the BLM organization was stealing from everybody. Not only did they burn down the city, but they actually burned down their own city. So on the one hand, you're arguing that we need a better quality of life for black people. How do we do that? Let's destroy all the infrastructure. I'm not saying that. I think normies thought this. These were powerful arguments for normies. They said, so BLM is corrupt. They said abolishing the police leads to crime. It seems like an excuse actually for crime. And so much of it is just anti-white. And we saw that with critical race theory. People got sick of the COVID lockdowns. They saw the Democrat politicians were having dinner in restaurants while they were forcing everybody to mask. They saw the lunacy of the double maskers, the fake science. They found out many of the conspiracies were true. Then with Ukraine, people saw that we're raising the flag for democracy and liberalism, but you're putting all this money behind a totally corrupt government. They don't hold elections. So there was sort of this cultural moment in 2021 and 2022, I think, when people became disenchanted and disillusioned with woke, left-wing, liberal hegemony. They saw what we saw years before, what many of the disaffected young white men saw in 2016 with the first Trump election, in 2017 and 2018. All of this futurist female, anti-white, global citizen type stuff that we saw then, I think the normies caught up about 5 or 6 years later. And they saw the censorship, the foreign wars, the lockdowns, the BLM crap, the anti-whiteness, and I think slowly but surely people started to turn against it. Now, the left has adapted. And I think you're starting to see what I would call a post-woke leftism. And they have sort of synthesized the critiques of wokeism. And you see this in the rise of dark woke and the dirtbag left and these guys like Cumtown, where they're able to say racial slurs in an ironic way. And you got guys like Shane Gillis. I actually consider Shane Gillis to be like a post-woke left-wing comedian, where they can present as a chud, they can present as maybe culturally, racially insensitive, in reality holding liberal politics. And maybe he's a bad example, maybe he's not a Democrat, but he shows how it's possible to be still liberal, still maybe holding a woke politics, but not with that overbearing, over-the-top woke demeanor, the kind of censorship and blue-haired, triggered SJW type stuff from the years before. I also think about Kamala Harris's election. Now, Kamala, she was the vice president. There was a machine that propelled her into the nomination after Biden stepped down. But when she picked a vice president, she picked Tim Walz as basically an olive branch to white people. They said, we need a white football coach from the Midwest, from Minnesota, to get white men on board. They started selling a camouflage hat. What do you think that was? That was their version of a MAGA hat. Think about it. In 2016, they said the MAGA hat is a swastika. In 2024, they had their own version of it. Why? It was the same purpose. The MAGA hat is a trucker hat. It was supposed to say, we are the white working class. We are truckers. We are welders, plumbers. What was the camo hat? It was a hunter's hat. It was supposed to say, yes, Democrats can be hunters and own guns and coach football and fix a pickup truck. It was a self-conscious outreach to white men. You had white dudes for Kamala. In 2016, they were practically saying, don't vote for us. In 2016 and 2020, they were practically saying, fuck white men, we hate white men, don't vote for us, don't identify as white, it's shameful. In 24, they said, no, we're white dudes for Kamala. We're white, we're men, and we're voting Democrat. And don't get me wrong, yes, that was very like gay coded and it was for faggots and pussies. But there was this, clearly there's a shift happening. And what would you say the shift is? They have integrated this into their worldview. And they've sort of taken MAGA, which is an appeal to the white working class. And you could say it's an authenticity. It's a level of performative vulgarity. I think of J.D. Vance, who works in swear words into his speeches. Everything is, I was talking to some white dude and we did some normal shit. Like, it's incorporating this sort of thing into the repertoire. And so the Democrats and the left are sort of taking multiculturalism. They're taking left-wing economic populism, which is this anti-millionaire and billionaire thing, anti-capitalist thing. They're taking their left-wing program and they're integrating into it the MAGA hat. They're integrating into it maybe a looser speech code. They're not going to freak out about slurs. And they're integrating into it an acceptance of white men. We're not going to beat the shit out of white men explicitly anymore. They're integrating these things in. And I think that we have to deal with the fact that if the left stops being militantly anti-white, they actually become formidable again. In a word, if the left stops being militantly, explicitly, aggressively anti-white, in other words, if they sort of live up to their own values, they start being formidable again. Because there's a lot of people out there. I think about guys like Dan Bilzerian, who's a friend of mine. And Dan Bilzerian, I mean, he's probably as right-wing as it gets. He's got like libertarian politics. But if a Democrat in the future, like a Ryan Grimm or a Max Blumenthal or a Glenn Greenwald, that sort of person steps up and says, you know, I'm kind of like a libertarian on guns. And I'm kind of a libertarian on social issues. I think that's a culture war. But I'm left-wing on economics. I want to I want to eat the rich, and I'm a non-interventionist on foreign policy, and I'm Israel critical, and I don't hate white men, but I'm just sort of tolerant of the diversity in the country. A Democrat with that kind of program can win a guy like Dan Bilzerian, can win a guy like Joe Rogan, can win a guy like, maybe many of the people that were watching that halftime show. And I think that it would be a mistake for the right wing to run the same playbook in 2026 that they did in 2016. This kind of Matt Walsh, grumpy, spiteful thing, it's not going to work. Because I watched the Super Bowl halftime show from the point of view of a normie, and you know what I thought? I thought it was fun. I thought it was lighthearted. I thought it was fun. I thought it was catchy, good beat. It was just fun. It wasn't actually overtly offensive. It wasn't an LGBT nightmare. It wasn't if anything, the Kendrick Lamar show was more woke. The Kendrick Lamar show is, of course, they got Sam Jackson as Uncle Sam, and it's a whole thing about racism. If anything, every black performance is way more woke, defiant, anti-American, aggressive, sort of challenging white people. This was not like that. And what did we see in the Turning Point All-American halftime show? If anything, it was self-ghettoizing. It was taking our ball and going home. Everybody's enjoying the Super Bowl. 135 million people are enjoying the big game and the Latin halftime show and whatever. And then you have all these conservatives that took their ball and went home. Turning Point USA, this like political group, puts on some other show with Kid Rock. And what's even the point other than to say, we're just protesting all of that? Why? Because it's in Spanish? And by the way, it's a totally contradictory message. The Heritage Foundation had a Super Bowl ad where they have like a Jewish family and a black family and an Hispanic family and an Asian family and a white family all being Christian eating at dinner. And so it's like, what's the Republican message? It's like, well, we're not white nationalist and we're not white identitarian. We're inclusive, but you can't speak Spanish. And so it just takes us to a place where the white right, the kind of white Republican response actually comes across as being overly political, bitter, resentful, spiteful, and just kind of sad and depressing. And I watched, on the other hand, the All-American halftime show from Turning Point, and it's all country. It's all like generic country music. There isn't one star out of the whole group. And the lyrics are all super political. The lyrics are all like, I hate trannies. And it's like, can't we make a song without it being about the culture war? If you translate some of the Bad Bunny songs, they're about like taking pictures with your friends at a party. Then you get these country music songs and they're like, I can't be country no more because I'm getting canceled by the woke mob. Like, that's the song. The song is like some old guy in a leather jacket with a fucking hair transplant. And the lyrics are like, I can't be country no more because I'm getting canceled for saying boys can't be girls. And it's like, can I watch the halftime show concert without a guy with a t-shirt that says based talking about trannies in the school? Like, really? Those are the lyrics. The lyrics are super political and they're just sad. That was one of the songs. The song was like, we're getting bullied by the left because we just want to cut the grass and go to work. And the left is picking on us. And it's like loser festival. Loser festival. And say what you want about the Bad Bunny thing. It feels like triumphant. They're celebrating their culture. They have actually an expansive, inspiring vision, objectively speaking. The photo is, love is more powerful than hate. That is an asinine thing to say. It contains nothing. There's no content. But it is something that is, you could say, is emotive, like it's sentimental. And this inclusive, expansive idea of, hey, we're all Americas are part of this thing, like that's actually uplifting in an objective way. Then you go to Turning Point Fest and it's like, oh, we can't be who we are because the left is picking on us. Oh, we're being oppressed because the left is mad. They're canceling us for saying men can't be women. One is so hyper political and uninspired and sad and weak and basically just like a bitch fest. And the other is like, no, we are the world. Like our message isn't even political. Our message is just the way things are. And so I said it on Telegram. This is my honest prognosis. If we embrace that, whatever that was, the Kid Rock halftime show, we're cooked. It's just over. Okay, Kid Rock sucks. Nobody under the age of 40 knows a single Kid Rock song. Nobody is listening to Kid Rock. And anybody that is watching that is pretending to like it because they're spitefully sitting out and self-ghettoizing away from the real halftime show. And honestly, pretending to be offended. It's literally fake outrage, self-ghettoizing, being overly political, pretending to like the things because of the values they purport to have. In other words, we have become the kind of far left in a certain sense. It's the same kind of behavior that I think alienated the normies from the left 10 years ago. So I thought it was a big L. I was watching that and just felt like depressed. I'm watching this show and I'm like, it's boring. The costumes suck. The production sucks. The songs suck. The lyrics are weird. The acts are weird. I'm like, if this is the best we have to offer, I think everybody's going to go with Latino futurism. If the white right, if the best we have to offer is this sad, dying gasp of white culture, it's like some white trash country hip hop artist from Detroit from the 90s. If that's the best we have to offer, people are going with liberal hegemony. And if liberal hegemony is not giving a middle finger in their face, people are going to go with it. You know, in other words, white people are going to feel better being included in liberal hegemony and being included in Hollywood and included in the Super Bowl and included in the Grammys. As long as white people feel like they're not actually being like deliberately offended and oppressed, they're going to prefer that. So we need to come up with something different. The kind of Matt Walsh grumbling about the halftime show every year like it's the end of the world. It's just not attractive. It doesn't attract. So you can take that and you can do whatever you want with that. You can say that, oh, I'm only saying that because I'm Mexican and whatever. You can cope, but that's the truth. And I'll tell you something about Donald Trump. The reason that Donald Trump was so successful is because that he understood this. In 2016, we had come off after this string of defeats. It was Mitt Romney, John McCain. Who were the contenders? It's people like John Huntsman, Ted Cruz. Our bench sucked. And the reason that Trump was able to electrify the movement is because he came from New York. Okay, he didn't come from the Country Music Awards, no offense. He came from New York City, an actual, real, respectable, world-class city. And he came from Hollywood, and he was famous and a billionaire. And he talked like a celebrity, and he looked like a celebrity, and he had aura like a celebrity. And for young people like myself, and for young tech guys, and young extremely online guys, and trolls and libertarians, the reason that we were enamored with Trump is because he was progressive, forward-thinking, sexy, exciting. Yes, there was sex appeal. Why? Because he has a supermodel wife. Because he has a skyscraper with his name on it that's made out of gold. because he has a fucking plane with his name on it, because he has a TV show, because he's been in Hollywood movies, because he's famous, okay? And that is what was exciting. It was this idea that we were not dorky losers, that the Republican Party was bigger than these like really old people that show up to every Republican thing for the past 30 years. That is why people like Trump. It was that vision, make America great again. And even the rhetoric, this like fiery, fresh rhetoric about nationalism and globalism, it was edgy, futuristic, forward-thinking. And to the extent that we have lost that cultural cachet, it's because we forgot that secret ingredient. We forgot that that is what was behind the success. And you think about where we are now compared to where we are a year ago. A lot of left-wing people are taunting us. Arguably a year ago, we had the culture, and it took us 12 months to lose it. A year ago, the right wing was ascendant, and to be a Democrat felt like to be not cool, felt like to be a loser. We had the comedians, the podcast bros, the live streamers, the celebrities. We had it. And ostensibly we, meaning the broader right wing, obviously I didn't vote for Trump, but it was like the right wing had the initiative. Here we are a year later, totally lost it. And I don't think that we're going to get it back by doubling down on Turning Point and Kid Rock and this kind of crap. It's embarrassing. That's my reality check. That's my reality check about the halftime show. I liked it. And unironically, I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was good pageantry. I like shows. You know that about me. I like shows. I like the dancing. I like the set. And I like music. And I'm open-minded about different kinds of music. I like rap music. I like alternative pop, rock music. I like good music. It was good. It was fun. It was lively. I watched it and it was attractive. This thing at Turning Point, it fucking sucked. And I see some people trying to do this hot take where they're like, no, they were both bad. No, they really weren't. One was good and one sucked. One was actually a lot of fun and one was a drag. One was about the music and dancing and fun, and one was really weirdly political and just kind of goofy and didn't make any sense, and it was actually paid for by a political nonprofit. So no, I'm not going to do this gay, cowardly, no, it's all Zog slop. No, one was super entertaining. You know, whatever you want to say, the Super Bowl was this unbelievable production. Green Day was excellent. The game was great. I mean, I hate sports, but I watched the game. It was kind of boring for most of it, but, the production was good. Halftime show was exciting. It was good. So, liberalism is sort of unstoppable. If you want to derail liberalism, if you want to derail this machine, we need to be absolutely excellent. We can't be phoning it in. Kid Rock is not going to defeat liberal hegemony, okay? If you think the fucking Super Bowl and the military-industrial complex and everything that America is, Hollywood, all of these world wonders that America creates, if you think that's going to be derailed by a Kid Rock concert and if we just get enough of the silent majority of QAnon believers and alternative medicine believers and, weird Christian cultists that support Israel, if we just get enough of those people in a stadium and enough red, white, and blue lights and stuff, that we're going to win, you're wrong. You're wrong. So, anyway. That's my take on the Super Bowl halftime show. I do think it matters. I do think it's culturally significant. And I think that we need to take it seriously. And I'm going to be honest with you. The left has fully recovered. They have taken back the initiative. And I know, maybe saying fuck ICE at the Grammys didn't work. This is not, I don't think, the same kind of wokeism that put everybody off 5 years ago. It's a different animal. So anyway, that's that. Okay, I do want to move on. We're like an hour into the show, and we're consumed with talk about sports, about the halftime show. I want to move on. I want to get into our featured story, which is about these Epstein files. We're definitely not going to get into Iran. And our featured story is about our latest development here on Thomas Massie and the Epstein files. The big news is that it seems that we're actually going to get some real information here. And I said this last week about the files. Again, this was really unpopular. But I said last week about the actual files that got dropped by the Department of Justice. There really isn't a smoking gun in the files. There's no there there. There's not one email. There's not one photograph. There's not one video. There's nothing that is actually explicitly damning. And everybody freaked out because I said that. They said, well, you know, there's these suspicious emails. There's innuendo, there's Pizzagate-like coded language. And I think that's totally true. I agree with that. But what we got in the files, if you were to go to a judge, go to court with this stuff, it wouldn't hold up. You couldn't make a charge stick against somebody with what is in the files. So what are we supposed to do with this information? Well, I said this not last Friday, but the Friday before that. And I said this last Monday. The call to action is that we have to take the 3 million files that we have and these suggestive emails, the innuendo, the coded language, these really suspicious emails that we have questions about, and we need to demand that the Justice Department do a full investigation. Because here's the thing about something like this. If Epstein is running a sex trafficking blackmail ring, and he's got compromising material on foreign governments and powerful business leaders, and if these files were put together 20 years ago, the DOJ, the very same DOJ that is in on all of it, they're not going to release all the evidence. Obviously. If the idea is that there is a grand conspiracy and Epstein is protected by intelligence, and like I said, he's got this unbelievable operation that spans different jurisdictions and private and public life, that's not going to be in the files. And if it is, it's not going to be in the files they release. And if it is, it's going to be redacted. So people were saying 2 weeks ago, okay, we have these 3 million files. Let's search through them and let's just take anything that resembles wrongdoing, and let's put this out there like this is the end all be all. And I said that's a big mistake. Let's not overplay our hand, because it's not the end all be all. We have to take what we find, bring it to the Justice Department and the relevant authorities, because unlike us, they have the actual government power to investigate. Now, the big news today has to deal with this question. So, of course, people have been going through the Epstein files, and there is a lot of stuff that is weird. There is Pizzagate coded language talking about beef jerky and pizza and all that sort of stuff, which we saw from the Podestas and the WikiLeaks emails 10 years ago. And you also have some suspicious emails. They talk about torture. They talk about young ages. They talk about a lot of things like this. So people have raised to social media and to the government that these sorts of things are inside the files. Finally, Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have brought it to the attention of the government. Now the Department of Justice says that they are going to open up the unredacted files only to members of Congress. And there's some rules concerning this disclosure. They have to make an appointment 24 hours in advance. They can't take photos, can't do any kind of electronic recording. And they can only do it in like a guided tour. So it's not like they can just ask for the documents and receive them by email. They actually have to go in. I don't know if it's at the DOJ building. I don't know where exactly it's taking place, if it's going to be at the Capitol building. But congressmen make an appointment 24 hours in advance. They come in, can't record anything. It's a limited amount of time. They take a look. They could take notes. and that's it. So Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna are working on this, and they're working through it because under the actual legislation, which was passed by the two of them, they forced the hand of the House of Representatives to bring this bill to the floor that requires the DOJ to release the files. It actually says that the DOJ may not be following through on what it says in the law. The law says that you need to release everything related to Epstein, and they haven't released all the files. And of course, the files they did release are heavily redacted. So this is one of these concessions that the DOJ is offering up, but it is being currently litigated. You have these representatives like Massie and Ro Khanna. They are saying, we're not really getting what we're entitled to. And the DOJ is giving this concession saying, well, we'll release the unredacted material, but only under supervision and only for members of Congress. And again, there's all these rules. Now, one of the things that has been found inside the files, and this has been brought to everybody's attention, is that the Department of Justice has actually found 6 unnamed collaborators with Epstein. And so the DOJ can actually charge up to 6 people in connection with Epstein. And it describes them as likely incriminated. That's the word that is used. This is in the files that are released. The DOJ says there are 6 likely incriminated individuals, and these are collaborators. These are accomplices to Epstein. I believe one of them is Ghislaine Maxwell. Another one almost certainly is Les Wexner, the Jewish billionaire. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have seen the names, and they've given hints. They say that one of them is a very prominent person, no other details. They say the other is a high-ranking member of a foreign government. Again, no details. But so the DOJ says there's 6 people that could go down, that could be charged. These congressmen have seen the names, but they're redacted, and they're not allowed to say the names. And so this is the story. This is from Axios. This just came out today. It says, quote, the Justice Department redacted the names of at least 6 men who are likely incriminated by their inclusion in the Epstein files, said Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna after reviewing unredacted versions of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. The lawmakers said they want to allow the DOJ time to further unredact the files. However, they also put sharing the names on the House floor on the table. This is a very poorly written article. Some brown person wrote this. They put sharing the names on the House floor on the table. It's like, what monkey wrote this? What kind of third world garbage wrote this? Somebody, this is actually how it's written. This isn't, I like Axios. The lawmakers said they want to allow DOJ time to further unredact the files, but have also put sharing the names on the House floor on the table. It's just like horrible writing. Anyway, it says the lawmakers would be protected by the House's speech and debate clause if they were to read them on the floor, providing them with immunity from civil or criminal liability. Massie told reporters that one of the men is pretty high up in a foreign government and another is a prominent individual. The lawmakers didn't elaborate on what they meant or specify the conduct at issue. The Justice Department agreed to let lawmakers access the full documents following a written request from House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin. Democrats and some Republicans have argued that the DOJ is skirting its statutory requirements under the Epstein Transparency Act by withholding millions of documents and heavily redacting some of the files that they did release. The documents will be available on computers in a reading room, at the DOJ building in Washington, D.C. from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Members must give at least 24 hours notice and cannot bring in electronic devices. So here's the thing about the files. We only have half of them. You have to understand this. We only have half of them. There are 6 million files. The DOJ released 3 million. So it's not even like we have the majority of them. We have half. And the files that we do have, we don't even have the complete documents. names and details and all kinds of other information is being withheld. So this is why I said we cannot jump to conclusions. And you want to know why? If people take things that are fake or exaggerated or embellished and they promote these things, and we've seen it happen for the past 2 weeks, those things will be debunked. And you know what people are going to say then? They're going to say, well, we released the files. There was nothing bad in the files. People thought there was, but they were wrong. They didn't do their research, and it turned out to be a nothing burger. But here's what we need to press on, and I've been saying this for 2 weeks. I said, don't take these files and take one vague little email, because that's what people are doing. They take anything that looks suspicious, anything that looks damning, and they say, see, here's the evidence. No, that's not the evidence. The evidence is in the 3 million other files that weren't released. That's why they weren't released. The evidence has been redacted. That's why it's redacted. Why would they redact it? What other reason would there be to redact it other than to cover up for people that have not yet been indicted? That's really the only reason you would do that. And so here is the call to action. We have to insist that all the information gets out there. Only then can we make a judgment. Now, to that end, Thomas Massie and others are saying we need all the files. You are not following through on your obligations. The Epstein Transparency Act says you need to declassify everything, all the files, all the information in the files. What's more, they have looked at the unredacted files in the supervised setting, and they found that actually when you look through them, you'll find there are people named in the files that probably should be investigated. So what do you do with this information? Well, then you push the DOJ to prosecute those people. We should be looking into Howard Lutnick. We should be looking into Les Wexner. We should be looking into Steve Bannon. And I like Bannon. I've said it before. I like the guy. I like what he's been saying, but he's named in there an awful lot. If he's innocent, well, let that come out in the investigation. We need to look into Elon Musk. We need to look into all these people, Donald Trump, Ronald Lauder, Leon Black. All of these people need to be fully investigated. There's enough there for a warrant. You're hanging out with a convicted sex trafficker. You're hanging out with somebody who was involved in some shady stuff. And by the way, these were all people that were hanging out with Epstein after he was initially charged and convicted. Leon Black was his money man after Epstein got out of prison. Ronald Lauder was helping him launder money, allegedly using art purchases after Epstein was charged and convicted. Peter Thiel was investing money with him after he was convicted. So what does that tell you? All these people need to be scrutinized. All of them need to be investigated. And that's where this needs to go. You shouldn't say, hey, we got the files. We have all the evidence. Case closed. They're satanic, cannibalistic vampires. No, you need to take what you have, use that to press for further disclosure for names, and we have to pressure the DOJ to then follow up on the names. The people in the files have names and they have addresses. And we can do nothing with this information because we are citizens. But the FBI and Congress and the DOJ, well, they have the power to get a warrant. They have the power to issue subpoenas, to compel testimony, to depose. They have the power, actually, and the obligation to investigate. So the next step is we need to push Thomas Massie, to push the DOJ to release all the files. That's number one. Number two, we need the names of these 6 people, and the DOJ has actually listed 2 of them. One of them is Les Wexner. I believe they reported that earlier, but I'm not certain. And the other is a billionaire from the United Arab Emirates. His name is Ahmed Suleiman, I think is the name. I might be mispronouncing that. It's one of those names. But it's a billionaire Emirati, well known, I believe he's royal family or connected. and the other is Les Wexner. So we need to know who those names are. And then once that happens, we need to investigate. But I'll tell you something. Here's what stinks about the whole situation. And people need to be reminded of this every single day. The Trump administration engaged in a failed cover-up of the Epstein files. Whatever is in the files, whatever we know about the files, let's put that on the back burner for just 1 second. One thing is absolutely unambiguous. Some of these emails are very suggestive but vague. And some of them are eyebrow-raising and suspicious, but they're not necessarily a smoking gun. And I think that's why we need full transparency. They need to be unredacted. We need the rest of the files. Putting that aside for just a second, here's something that we know absolutely, and this is something that people are forgetting. It's something people are overlooking. What the Trump administration said specifically about the files last year is that there were no files. Remember? This Attorney General, Pam Bondi, at the Department of Justice, she authorized a memo. She signed off on a memo that said there are no Epstein files. That was the official declaration of the Department of Justice. They said the files do not exist. The White House put out a press release that said the files do not exist. Not only is that a lie, and it is, there are actually 6 million files, okay? So they lied. They said the files don't exist, and actually what they said is the only thing that we have in our possession is child sexual abuse material. They said, we don't have documents, we don't have emails, we don't have anything. They said, you've seen it all. Everything that we have, you've got. They said, all that we have left is sexual abuse material that we cannot release because it hurts the victims. Remember? So the files do exist, and they lied. Then they came up with another lie to cover it up, and they said, well, we can't release what is remaining because it's all just going to hurt the victims. Remember that? They said it would be irresponsible to release what is remaining because that would only compromise the victims' privacy or safety. So that's actually an active cover-up. That's not like they were misinformed. They didn't exaggerate. That's not a false promise. The Trump administration engaged in an active deception and a cover-up. They also said there are no people that we need to investigate. They said there's no black book. There's nobody else that we're interested in. They said there are no other persons of interest or suspects. And yet, inside their own files, which they said didn't exist, they say that there are people, and this is their terminology, that are likely incriminated. So how are you not interested in any further investigation? There are no other persons of interest. The case is closed, and yet there are 6 people that we know of. We don't even know their names because they're redacted, but the DOJ acknowledges there are 6 people that we know of that are likely incriminated. So they lied about that too, and they closed the case anyway. So Pam Bondi needs to be impeached. You do realize that. I think this fits the bill for high crimes and misdemeanors. You lied about the existence of the files. You lied about unindicted collaborators and accomplices. There are people that you acknowledge exist who are likely incriminated in the files that you said did not exist. You lied in the furtherance of a cover-up. Pam Bondi has to be impeached. Kash Patel has to be impeached. These people have to go. They cannot keep their jobs. How could we trust that Pam Bondi's DOJ, which covered up the files for a year and a half, is now going to faithfully follow the Epstein Transparency Act and release all the files? How can the public have any confidence in this, that there's any propriety here? Furthermore, How can the public have any confidence that Pam Bondi and this Department of Justice will actually investigate the people that are involved and bring them to justice if, again, they close the case knowing these people were likely incriminated? You can't trust them to follow through. You can't trust them to investigate. You can't trust them to find the information. And I would take it a step further. How can you even trust President Trump? He hired most of these people. Ronald Lauder is named in the files 961 times. His son-in-law is nominated to chair the Federal Reserve. Leon Black is named in the files dozens of times. He was one of Epstein's biggest benefactors by far. His son is the head of the Development Finance Corporation in the Trump government. Howard Lutnick is named in the files dozens of times. He talked to Epstein after he was convicted, lied about this, and he is Trump's Commerce Secretary and also on the Development Finance Corporation. So how are any of these people, how is this Trump administration going to hold them accountable? How is that going to work? How can the public have confidence that he will do that? You can't. This Epstein scandal, this is like bigger than Watergate. It really is. In terms of its significance, in terms of the actual crime that was committed, this is like a Watergate level scandal that, mark my words, it's going to bring down the Trump government. It just is. This sank the Trump government in 2025. If there was any momentum, if there was any forward momentum in the first year of the administration, that memo alone ground it to a halt. And now that we've gotten the files, this is something they're just not going to recover from. This is a mortal wound because it raises so many questions. It shows that they are liars, and it destroys any confidence in what this government set out to do with its mandate, which is to drain the swamp and fight corruption and stand up for the forgotten men and women. And I hate to say it, but this Joel Ossoff in Georgia, he's coined the term, this is the Epstein class. The Howard Lutnicks, the Jared Kushners, the Ronald Lauders, these are the Peter Thiels, these are the Epstein class. Fitting, apropos, totally on the money. And now that we have this information, it's only logical we're going to follow up on it. It's a midterm election year. The Democrats are going to win, and the Democrats are going to use this issue to blow up this administration. And unfortunately, they have every right to do it. Unfortunately for Trump and the Republicans, they have the mandate to do this because it is necessary. The people need answers. We can't trust this government to deliver them, and it's going to blow up the latter half of this administration. And Republicans have only themselves to blame for all of it. It's a disaster. So that's these Epstein files. We'll see what happens if we get the names of these likely incriminated individuals. We'll see what is released by the DOJ. And I think the call to action is that if you believe there are any suspicious emails, raise this with Thomas Massie. Tag him on Twitter, send it in an email to his congressional office. Call your local congressman. Congress has the discretion to look at the files. They work for us. They need to deliver. If you have a question about this age 10 email, if you have a question about this beef jerky is frozen email, the sulfuric acid, all that kind of stuff, ask your congressman to go and look at the unredacted files. Let's get all that information. Let's push for a full disclosure and then push for an investigation. And pay attention to the people that don't want to do this. There's a lot of people out there saying, oh, this is a Democrat hoax. Stephen Miller's wife said this. Stephen Miller, the Jew, and his Jew wife said, oh, it's all a Democrat hoax. I wonder why they're saying that. And all of Stephen Miller's dick riders on Twitter, they're all saying the same thing. So it's this is just like the scandal to end all scandals, and it's not going away. So that's that. But I do want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this.
Y'all stop crying, man. You heard my boy. You heard my boy. He says, stop crying. All this energy with the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny, bro. Y'all are giving real, like TPUSA is giving real BLM energy. All this complaining about people holding you back. And y'all got to admit, even though Nick expressed this time, I've been calling this out, this victimhood behavior. This complaining victimhood behavior that now the right has adopted, when that used to be the thing that the right made fun of the left for. Leaning into all this victimhood. Oh my God, the left is stopping you from doing something. What is the left stopping you from doing? Oh, you may get canceled. So what? Deal with it. It's not worth fighting for? Is it worth fighting for or is it not? Because if it's not worth you getting canceled for it, then do you really want to do it anyway? And I don't even know what exactly Nick is referring to or what exactly they're talking about as far as them complaining about what's holding them back, how disaffected they are. Like, yo, I don't want to hear it. I have that same energy consistently across the board when it comes to embracing all of that victim energy. We talked about it on our live show yesterday, going back and forth with it. Well, I can't do this because, yo, all the victim energy, because you want to know why? Because when it comes to all the DEI, all the Black Lives Matter, all the LG, all this stuff, I realized all of this victimhood stuff, it doesn't benefit the people that are complaining about it. And they're usually being used by pawns, by people who don't even deal with the problems or limitations that they have you buying into. Like, what exactly is this? And Nick was spot on when it comes to his analysis of Bad Bunny, in my opinion. It wasn't offensive. And maybe it's the right's fault as to why I'm looking at it the way that I'm looking, because it's like here y'all were saying, oh yeah, they come out in dresses and he hates America and he just said F ICE at the Grammys, all these different things that were being presented. And then he comes out and does a very bland, like, and I mean bland in a sense of making a political statement. What was the biggest statement that he made? That love is more powerful than hate? That, hey, let's embrace all of America, not just America. Let's embrace North America, Central America, South America, all of these Americas. And going back to Nick Fuentes, perhaps why he has this type of energy is because when y'all wanted to take Venezuela, and a lot of y'all were saying, take it, y'all started referencing what Nick Fuentes was referencing, the Monroe Doctrine, right? Well, this is all our hemisphere. Well, if it's all our hemisphere, then therefore we got to embrace all of it. Oh, what do we think? We could just take all these different countries, we could take over them, you know, and then not embrace the people that are there? Nah, we're going to embrace that. We're going to embrace that. But all the crying and complaining, I'm just not with it. It wasn't offensive. He didn't make any political stances. I said this on the show before. People should just come out and say exactly what they're worried about. And in my opinion, what these people are worried about, the people that are complaining about a lot of this stuff and crying, it's to what Nick has brought about many times. It's the fear of being replaced. It's the fear of no longer being the majority. It's the fear of seeing your country change. And Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl just represents that to a lot of people. And I'm not going to sit here and act like Jay-Z wasn't very strategic or the NFL wasn't strategic, because their overall goal and Jay-Z's overall goal is to what? To get views, to get this thing talked about more. So Turning Point USA, them amping up this Super Bowl and doing the most, having their own Super Bowl party or Super Bowl halftime show with fake views and fake bots, allegedly. All that did was make people actually want to watch the Super Bowl performance this year. I don't even know the last time that I watched a full Super Bowl performance, like really sat down and watched it, besides this one. I mean, I'll watch them, but maybe not too attentively. But that's actually what they did. Now, I guess I could be naive and say that they won, but they just won. Or I could be naive and say, well, look, they caused now more people to be viewed. They probably want more people to be viewed because Turning Point USA wants the same thing that Jay-Z wants. They just want this to be discussed. They want people emotionally engaged in whatever it is that we're watching. Why? Because that's what sports and entertainment has always been. How can we get these pawns, these slaves emotionally invested in something else that's going to distract them from all the issues that they may have in their current lives? Or let me not even say distract them from the issues that they have in their current lives, because sometimes we'll see that these events are actually used to bring about attention, like Turning Point USA brought it about. What it's actually trying to do is it's either take your attention away or overwhelm you to the point that you think you need to rely on a group like Turning Point USA in order to fix what is broken in your country. So that's how I see it. It's either one of two things. The entertainment in sports is either meant to completely distract you and have you not thinking about the real issues in the world. And when they are using the entertainment and bringing in the real issues of the world, it's to overwhelm you. It's to get you so emotionally engaged in this and pissed off about it to the point where you're like, oh my God, I gotta go link up with a group. Turning Point USA, I can't do this by myself. I can't figure out how to live life, but I gotta go, let me go join Turning Point USA and be a part of something bigger. All of this stuff is a play, and it was executed perfectly from Jay-Z's standpoint. I'm not even a fan of Jay-Z. I don't rock with Jay-Z. I don't rock with the fact, when Colin Kaepernick, I'm sure a lot of people, well, let me not judge. Some people may or may not be okay with Colin Kaepernick when he took a knee. And then Jay-Z came out after telling people to take a knee and telling people to boycott the Super Bowl. Then he gets a deal with Roger Goodell in the Super Bowl, which he seemed to have been using the other stuff as leverage. And all he did was then come out and say, hey, we're done taking a knee. Now that I got a job with Roger Goodell, now that I'm the head of choosing the Super Bowl music, now we're beyond kneeling. So I don't rock with Jay-Z. Jay-Z has always been a sellout coon to me. That's who he's always been to me. If I'm being real, your entire career, bro, I don't understand why we pat people on the back, bro. You sold drugs and made money off of poisoning, or you were poisoning our people with the drugs. Then you were poisoning our people with telling your story and glorifying your story about selling drugs, convincing more and more people to actually do that dumb stuff where you're going to end up either dead, in jail, right? Dead or in jail. It's like, how many Jay-Z's are there? But you dangle this in front of people to serve as a distraction, to entertain, and Jay-Z has always been a pawn for the elites. Whether it was him getting the Barclays Center or him having a percentage of the Barclays Center and then putting him up as the face of the Barclays coming to Brooklyn because they needed Jay-Z as the face, because then people in the neighborhood wouldn't complain as much about them destroying all these homes, taking away all these homes and gentrifying it, pretty much outpricing the people that were going to be living there. But they needed Jay-Z to condone that and to allow it to go through from a passive standpoint rather than people in an uproar. This is who Jay-Z is. So let me not just make this about Jay-Z, but getting back to the Super Bowl. All of this stuff is strategic in my, it's like all of this stuff is strategic, and we're going to talk about Epstein next. There's some things that have come out, Epstein, all this stuff is strategic, man. I just look at all of this stuff almost as if somebody's just writing the script. It's like, oh, well, if we write this, it'll create, a super low point. So therefore people will be impacted when you go up higher. And this is what a movie is. This is what a good show is. It takes you're here and then you go up and then you go all the way down. And then hopefully by the end of the movie, you win or you figure it out. And even if you take a bad loss, now people are emotionally engaged in it, talking about it, saying how much they hate it, because it's just like the end of Game of Thrones. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people loved it. Not too many people were in the middle. And that's what they love. That's what they love. That's what entertainment is, getting people emotionally engaged. So I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, or a lot of bit of a tangent. So let me kind of check back into the notes. So here we have 135 million people, Nick said, enjoying the big game while Turning Point USA and others took their ball and went home. And then Nick brought up the contradicting commercial. I didn't see it, with everyone eating dinner as Christians, not white, black, brown, etc. And they're all Christians. You know what would be a better message? How about all different, and I'm not sure, maybe it did incorporate this, but if it didn't, how about have different types of religions? Different type of religious groups sitting down and having dinner. How about have a Muslim, have a Jewish person, have a Christian, have somebody Buddhist, have somebody who's a part of the Baha'i faith, have somebody that's Hindu, across the board. Have different people, have some rosters on there. You know what I mean? So that would have been the message, but the message that you're trying to give across with Turning Point USA, it's like you're trying to give this diverse message, but I guess it's diversity on your terms. And from a simplistic standpoint, I can understand how people are looking at the Super Bowl and saying, I don't understand what they're saying. So therefore, like, I don't get it. Like, okay, like you could still choose what to enjoy. You could still enjoy just the performance. You can enjoy the, everything about like how they change scenes, appreciate the art in it. You could, or you can get angry. Or you can get angry and have a bad night because you're trying to connect everything to politics. But it's so funny, the same people that are now connecting everything to politics and complain, like your complaint, it's like you're seeing it through this lens of everything political. So now when Bad Bunny puts a performance on that is not political or is dumbed down to the point where it's like, you almost feel like a lot of people would be upset about Bad Bunny, like you didn't do enough. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are upset about, but no, he didn't do enough. He should have stood on business. He should have said F-ICE, all this other stuff. But then when I think back to Colin Kaepernick, the very same people who were upset about Colin Kaepernick politicizing sports, now you're getting upset with Bad Bunny, but you're seeing it through a super political lens to the point where you're seeing politics in an area where he didn't even show it. He didn't even highlight it. He didn't even have to. And people got so upset. He didn't even have, like, it's just funny seeing how all this stuff plays out. And I think that's what Nick's point is. It's like, yeah, you're turning into a group of victims. You're turning into a group of victims. What happened to y'all white people? What happened? When did y'all get like this? When did y'all get overly emotional? Y'all sound like some Negroes, man. When did y'all get like this? All these emotions over a little performance? Y'all, damn. I didn't know that y'all were emotionally triggered like that. I'm playing a little bit, but not really. Not really, I guess, period. All right, let's keep going. So Nick was calling out the white right. Did he say the white right? I think the white right, all generic country music. The lyrics are super political. And this is the thing, you're cheerleading for something that is super political, but then you were the same person saying that you were pissed off at Colin Kaepernick for using sports and entertainment to politicize something, but now you are cheerleading for Turning Point USA's halftime show because it's political, but it's just political in your face. Oh, I get it. So there's nothing wrong with politics as long as it aligns with your politics. I got you. Oh, man. Let's keep going. And Nick highlighted something that I see often, the fake outrage, pretending to be outraged, right? This is what a lot of people are saying. I kid you not. Yesterday, before today's show, we did our live show. The thumbnail was the post that Trump put up showing Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as monkeys. And I saw a lot of threads. I saw Jason Whitlock posting, a bunch of different people. And they were saying how this is just fake outrage, not Jason Whitlock in particular, but the people responding were saying, this is fake outrage that Black people are showing by being called monkeys. Because I think somebody asked the question, like, why are Black people the only people that get upset when being called monkeys? And people were saying fake outrage. They're just pretending to be mad. They're trying to make it a bigger issue than it is. This sounds like, without even addressing all that, this sounds very similar. This fake outrage with the Bad Bunny, like, bruh, stop trying to get your lick back. ICE took a hit. ICE is up out of there. ICE took an L. It is what it is. Move on. Move on. You're not going to get your lick back in this way because it just got y'all looking real corny, inconsistent, real vulnerable, real weak. Real embracing the victim Olympics, however it is that you want to describe it, y'all understand because I'm sure y'all feel that same way. That can't feel good. All right, let's finish up with this. One or two more things on this topic. So I agree with Nick when he says the right wing used to have the juice. And now they've lost it. They used to have the juice. Trump had the juice. I'll tell you what did it for me. When I saw Trump getting bullied by Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, and it was that blatant, he lost the juice for me. When he started tucking in chairs and just getting run over, and when he was cursing, getting out of character, talking about they both don't know what the F they doing, talking about Iran and Israel going back and forth and violating the ceasefire that he had put in play. He wasn't talking to Iran. He was talking to Bibi Netanyahu and Israel. He only had to include Iran so it wouldn't just be targeted at Israel. Once I was seeing all that, I was like, oh yeah, you no longer have the juice, bro. You know, all that you're fired energy, all that boss energy, all that energy is out the window when I see you sitting down and playing second fiddle to a country the size of New Jersey. And Jersey, y'all know I'm from Jersey, so that's not a shot at just being a little country, but like, come on now. Like, what are we doing here? We're America, right? We don't get ran by Israel or any other country, or do we? Or do we? So yeah, and now they completely just lost the juice. And a lot of people say that Trump lost it with the Epstein files and him turning his back, saying like, "Oh, if you still want the Epstein files, then you're not MAGA." That was corny, little kid, energy. And then with ICE doing too much, that we already talked about. People are conservatives. Unless you're a pro-Israel Zionist, conservatives, since Donald Trump has been in office, have been taking back-to-back L's. It's almost like a lot of y'all, I'm sure, wish Biden was in office, because then you could just complain about the things that Biden is doing. See, when Trump's in office, the person that y'all voted for, the person that I voted for, sometimes it's hard for people to call that stuff out. Call it out, bro. You should be more critical of the person that you put in office rather than more critical of the person that you didn't put in office, in my opinion. I voted for you to do certain things that you're not doing. I voted for you to not get bullied like all these other presidents have gotten bullied in the past by Israel. You're getting bullied even more. Like, the juice is gone. All right, let's move on to the Epstein files. So Pam Bondi, this is very simple. I'm gonna keep it real short. They've lost all credibility. Nobody really believes in Donald Trump, believes in Donald Trump's administration, believes in MAGA anymore. The only people that appear to believe in it is Mark Levin, Randy Fine, Ben Shapiro, Bibi Netanyahu, because that's the only people that he's doing things for. The agenda that Mark Levin is for, the agenda that Ben Shapiro and many others are on, is the same agenda that, or I would say, that's the pro-Israel Zionist agenda. So unless you're pushing for those, he's failed. If you're still rocking with Trump, and let me say this, if you're not a pro-Israel Zionist and you're still rocking with Trump, you're a fan. You're a stan. You're exactly what Eminem was talking about when the stan. Matter of fact, you're worse. I don't even want to disrespect Stan like that. You are a fanatical cheerleader of Donald Trump. You can't call him out. You can't call a spade a spade. You just want to root for him so bad, you'll adjust your vision. You'll adjust your lenses. Even though you're seeing clear, you'll adjust your lenses to see blurry, so therefore you don't have to acknowledge what's right in front of our face. That's what it seems like to me. And these Epstein files, I agree with Nick, these are worse than Watergate. These are worse than Watergate. And I think we should all remember that with Watergate, the actual issue wasn't the scandal. It wasn't them running up in the building trying to plant bugs or doing whatever they were doing. It was the fact that they covered it up. This is like way bigger than that. It's the issue that what was happening, all these very powerful people like Peter Thiel and all these other people that Nick named, it's like, whoa. What was their involvement? And they invested all this after he got caught, after he served time, after he was convicted. So you have that aspect of it. Then you have the cover up of it. And besides all of that, after you did the whole cover up, both Democrats and Republicans and Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. especially, and a lot of Trump's administration,
Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, they were jumping out the window saying, we got to release the files. Then they get in office. They've lost all credibility. They've lost completely all credibility. So now you have the cover up. Then he gets locked up and y'all make up. In my opinion, it's BS that he killed himself. I don't think that he did that. I don't think he unalived himself. And recent things have come out that just show that it's not consistent. It just came out in the files that, or I don't even know if this was in the files, but I remember, I think Anna Kasparian was revealing this, that, or not revealed, she was reporting on it. Yeah, I saw it on TYT. Shout out to TYT. I saw it on their page where Anna was saying that the person who found Epstein didn't recall like obvious information or relevant information about the noose. They never found the noose. The noose that they reported to be used as what was used what was used by Jeffrey Epstein to hang himself, it came out in the report that it wasn't the right noose. And there's been just a lot of inconsistencies. Let's not forget a couple minutes of tapes or something that oh yeah, every day it blocks out this particular time. All these different things. You got the inmate that was seen to be coming through and how they reported on a lot of these things. It's just inconsistent energy. So you have not only the actual scandal, not only the cover up of the scandal, but then you have what happened while he was locked up. Is he still alive? Was this a government hit? If it wasn't suicide, was it actually suicide? We don't know. We don't know. So this is far worse, far worse. And if we think that, I mean, that didn't have, I'm not going to say that didn't have, I don't know what the feeling was at the time. I wasn't alive, but this particular situation can flip this whole world upside down because Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna and others, they start exposing some of this stuff one way or another. And then it could be like a bunch of just different, like domino effect, right? Oh, I got in trouble. Now I'm going to expose you. Oh, you trying to expose? And then we'll see where this goes. We're going to have to pay close attention to where this goes because I see this getting very, very, very interesting. Very interesting and a very dangerous time for our country as well as the world, just based on all this chaos at the time. People are hating each other. Republicans are on the brink of a civil war within their party. Democrats versus Republicans. We still got our civil war going. And I say we, I'm talking about the country. I'm not Democrat or Republican. But the civil war with them, we got all this other, the right now, Democrats believe like the approval rating for Democratic politicians by Democrats is at an all-time low or was at an all-time low when Kamala was running. Now it's probably at an all-time low. I'm just assuming that's the case. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I'll tell you the feeling is that it's very low when it comes to approval rating for Donald Trump and his administration. So we don't know where this is going to go. It really feels like this is just the beginning of something huge. And perhaps that can be a scary place, but I guess this is, when we want to talk about the system and changing the system or fixing the system or whatever else we want to do, healing the system, perhaps it takes these dangerous times. So even though this may be a recipe for disaster, hopefully the only thing that's destroyed is all the evil. The truth shall come to light and more positivity will be birthed by whatever this process brings. So that's all y'all got from me, man. I'm super excited once again. Make sure y'all like and subscribe, but I'm super excited about being in this new space. Going to make sure that we give y'all some dope content. Please follow Black Guy in the Corner. Please follow that page because eventually probably gonna have to start putting these on that channel. But I'll keep y'all posted. Appreciate y'all as always. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, as our big bro Robert says, so we can control the algorithm, not let the algorithm control us. And with that, I'll let y'all go.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here, while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM fought that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.